Welcome to Top Table Gaming. In this video, I'm going to show you how to easily and quickly convert Rohan warriors. Hey guys, welcome to Top Table Gaming. You're here with your host Top Table Ben, and as I said in the intro, I'm going to be showing you guys how I've been converting up some of my Warriors of Rohan. So as some of you guys will know, I am currently building up a Rohan army, and as part of that I am going to be putting some Warriors of Rohan together. However, whilst looking at them, I have noticed that a lot of them are very similar. A lot of the poses aren't particularly dynamic, and I just wanted to add a little bit more variety when they do eventually go on the table. The conversions that I'm going to show you in this video are super simple. You don't need any fancy tools, you don't need any sculpting experience. All you will need is a sharp knife, potentially a pair of clippers and some plastic glue. So without further ado, let's have a look at the table and let's get converting. So before we start on this project, I think it's really important that we get everything together that we might need in order to complete it. So first up, we've got these Warriors of Rohan on sprue here. I've got my pile of bits from my bits box, which includes various spears, shields, and other broken Warriors of Rohan. And also we're going to need our tools. So first up, I have got my clippers. So they are going to be used to clip these guys off the sprue. Craft knife. So this, I've just replaced the blade on it, so it is super sharp for making nice clean cuts. Got my mold line remover for removing any of the mold lines on these models. And last but not least, this plastic glue from Sistel. I particularly like this one. It's got a very narrow nozzle, so it's very precise for applying glue to the bits that you need it to go on. So before we go any further, let's get these warriors off the sprue. Before you start on this project, it's really worth spending a little bit of time cleaning up all the mold lines. It will make it for a much better finish when you come to start painting. So first up, I'm going to do a very simple weapon swap. So I'm going to replace this axe with a spear. Now, as you will see, both of them match up quite easily. So this one should be a very simple one. So what I'm going to first do is cut along where the hand meets the wrist to separate this axe from this guy. Which leaves us with an extra weapon there, which we will put aside for later. Next up, I'm going to cut the hand off this throwing spear in exactly the same way. So just apply a little bit of pressure just on the joint between the hand and the wrist. Wrist comes away. There's a nice clean cut there. So you might need to tidy these up a little bit depending on how sharp your scalpel is, just to flatten the surface. And then once you're happy, you should have two nice clean edges that you can attach these weapons to. Now looking at that is, and it's at a little bit of an odd angle, so I'm going to just carve a little bit more away from the spear hand. Just like that. And once you're happy with the fit, you can get to gluing. Well, as I said, for this, I'm going to be using Sistel plastic glue, and you'll be thankful for this really kind of narrow nozzle. As you can see, the nozzle is tiny, which is great. So I am going to just apply the smallest dab of glue just to the end of the hand there, and I'm going to just line up hand joint like so. Just hold it in place for a second. And there we go. A very simple weapon swap. It means that I've got another spear armed warrior. The next conversion, and this one is slightly more involved, that I'm going to do is converting this archer into an axeman with a shield. So I saved the axe that I was using earlier, and I've also got some spare shields that have come off some warriors that are broken or slightly damaged. As you can see, it's a slightly different colour plastic because these models are older, but I am going to convert this guy to hold an axe and a shield. So first off, I'm going to put the shield on him. So I'm going to put the axe to one side. Now, as you will see on the shield, there is no boss in this one, so I'm going to have to take that one off another model. So as you can see here, I have got an old model who is missing a weapon, damaged already. So I'm just going to cut this the boss that normally would hold the shield on. I'm going to just gently cut that away, make sure it doesn't fly too far away off my table. And as you will see, that will now perfectly fit inside this shield. Push it through, there we go. Make sure it's nice and flat on the back because that will be quite key for what comes next. Once that is flat on there, you can always add a little dab of glue, but at this stage I don't think it's going to be necessary because we will be using that and that will become far more secure in the next stage. So the hand that I'm going to attach the shield to is this outstretched arm here. So obviously he has got no need for this bow anymore. So just as I did earlier, just where the bow meets the hand, I'm going to just apply a little bit of pressure and just cut that off. And again, just on the other side of it as well. Just apply a little bit of pressure. To cut that off. It's also just attached at the bottom here, so I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure. Make sure if you're cutting towards you that you have got a very steady hand. Idea should always be cutting away from you. Please don't shout at me in the comments. And then what we're going to do is we are going to attach this shield to this arm here, so it looks like he's got an outstretched arm holding this shield. And I'm just going to tidy this shield up a little. Just shave off these contact points just to make it a bit more rounded. Using the back of my knife here, as I did earlier, one of cleaning up mold lines. And just make it a little bit more rounded. Now, as I said earlier, this will become a little bit more secure now, so I'm going to apply just a small dab of glue just to the back of this shield, where it will be attached to the guy's arm. Now the beauty of using plastic glue, or let's say super glue, is it almost welds the plastics together. So rather than it just being kind of a bond between the two, they are literally completely glued together. They're completely like welded together, so that it's unlikely that they will ever be able to be separated. So give that a second or so to dry before we come back to do the axe. So once the shield is dry and firmly attached to the arm, we're going to move on to remove this hand and attach this axe here. So just like I did earlier, I'm going to just face him down onto the table, place a scalpel where I want to make the cut, and just apply some downward pressure. Very gently ease it off. Again, might just need to tidy up just the edge here, just to make sure it's nice and clean and a smooth edge as possible. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just attach this axe hand as though he's calling people from behind him. So again, I'm going to get my glue. I'm going to apply the smallest dab. Position his arm like that and hold the axe in place. With the warrior, that looks something like that. Which is a little bit more dynamic than some of the other poses out there. So next up is these two Warriors of Rohan. So I'm going to do a simple hand swap on these guys again. So just as I've already done, I'm just going to be cutting these guys off at the wrist. So the first one I'm going to attach. I'm going to put the sword on this guy. And I'm going to make him a little bit more dynamic as though he's trying to sort of swing his sword a little bit. Dry fit it. Happy with that. So again, apply the smallest little dab of glue just to the end there. And then we're going to just attach the throwing spear to this guy. Just going to tidy up that wrist ever so slightly. And we're going to make it look like he's running and about to throw this spear. There's a nice clean join there. Again, a little dab of glue on the wrist. There we go. Okay, and the very last conversion that I am going to be doing is making this guy into a swordsman and holding a shield as well. But I'm going to be swapping his hands. Now there is another left-handed member of the Rohirrim, and that is Theoden. So I don't see why there wouldn't be a left-handed warrior as well. So I'm going to be using the sword off this rider. Now, although I'm using it off a rider, you could use it off pretty much any other model that has got a sword, but it's just that I happen to have this rider spare. So what I'm going to do to begin with is I am just going to cut off the sword off this rider, but I'm going to cut it off at the hilt rather than at the hand. So lining up the knife along where the hand just joins the sword. Put my thumb on the sword just to stop it pinging across the room. And apply pressure downwards again. There we go. There is the sword. Put the rider to one side. And I'm going to be attaching the sword to this hand here. So we don't need this nodule that would be the boss of the shield on this hand in this situation. So I'm just going to snip that bit off. The next step in preparing this warrior is going to be to cut off his hand again just on here, but this time we want to actually remove the spear as well. So we'll remove the hand first. We will be reattaching the hand, but just on its own rather than holding a spear. So again, just applying a little bit of pressure. Make sure that you kept that hand, and what I'm going to be doing is just cutting the spear just where it joins the hand. What I'm going to be doing with this tiny little hand, I'm going to be reattaching it to the warrior, but in a slightly different angle, and I'm going to be aiming it so that it is facing behind him. So as always, dab the smallest amount of glue just on the wrist.
rotate the hand the right way. And just reattach it like that. If, like me, you've left a little bit too much plastic, you can always trim that a little bit later once the glue has dried. Next thing you're going to need to do is cut this hand off so that you can rotate it as well. So again, I'm going to be just lining up at the wrist. Again, you'll need to be keeping this hand, so make sure that it doesn't ping off across your hobby area, like so. I'm going to angle the hand just ever so slightly back towards the body. Almost, rather than being vertical like it was, it's now going to be almost horizontal. Small dab of glue. For this, it may be easier to use a pair of tweezers. And just make sure it's held in place. Before we move on to the next step, I'm just going to let those dry. And now that is dry, I'm going to be attaching the last two components, which is the sword blade, which I have here, and this shield. So I'm going to attach the sword blade first. I'm going to be attaching it to this hand on the inside just here. So again, small dab of glue, just where the sword will be attached. Too much there. And just hold it in place. He's got a sword like across his body like that. And last but not least, the shield. Apply the smallest dab of glue. I'm going to apply it, stick it on across the back, hand just there, back of his arm. And there we have it. He looks like he's leading the charge against Dunland or Isengard, but it is definitely a slightly more dynamic pose than some of the others that are included in the kit.
And with that, this set of conversions is done. They really do add some much needed variety to your Warriors of Rohan and would be ideal for adding to a battle company. So guys, what did you think of those really simple conversions? Is it something that you're going to try yourself, or is it something that you're going to try with potentially other warriors, because there's loads of variation out there and pretty much the only limit is your imagination? If you do decide to do some of these conversions yourself, make sure that you're going over to the Top Table Gaming Community Facebook page and showing off your work. If you want to support the channel at all, make sure you're checking out all the links in the description below. We've got links to our Patreon, we've got links to our Element Games affiliate code, and we've got all sorts of other links out there, so go and check those out. Thanks for watching guys, I will see you guys in the next video.